What's up, EPW fans? We just wanted to jump on here for a minute and talk to you. It's pretty shocking news today. One of the most influential people in professional wrestling in all of wrestling history. You like him, you don't like him, whatever you want to say about the man, there's nobody that can argue that he is not one of the most influential people on the business of professional wrestling in the last 60 years or more. And of course, I'm
Absolutely.
talking about the one and only, the immortal Hulk Hogan has passed away at the age of 71. And man, Neil, you're just like me. This is our childhood icon. This is the real life superhero we grew up watching.
Well, I mean, Hogan was like the first superhero, like real life superhero. I mean, before Warrior and all these other folks, it was Hogan, and Hogan did stuff before all the crossover stuff between wrestling and movies and all that type thing. Hogan did it before anybody did.
Yeah.
I can remember as a kid when I was living in Dallas with my dad. He actually took me to see No Holds Barred with Zeus. Remember that? Which,
Me and my buddy Brad went to the theater and saw that in Columbus.
which is crazy to me because everybody talks about like that being one of the worst movies ever filmed. And I actually thought it was. I mean, it's a wrestling movie. It's a little tongue in cheek, but I mean it's better than a lot of movies that I've seen.
Especially wrestling movies. There's some
Oh my
awful
Lord.
wrestling movies out there, but I mean, it's 80s, it's
Ready to
campy.
Rumble's horrible.
Yeah, Ready to Rumble. I can never get through that movie. I absolutely despise that movie. But No Holds Barred. I mean, yeah, if you go back and look at it in this day and age, it's silly and there's some goofy lines in there, but it wasn't that bad of a movie. And I definitely couldn't
Commando.
wait to go see it. Okay.
Suburban Commando. I mean, I always liked that movie. I don't know. I mean, like I said, none of those movies were Academy Award winners by any means, but they were, they still weren't bad movies. But Hogan was the first to do was the first to do all of that stuff. First wrestler ever on the cover of Sports Illustrated, I believe.
Man, I remember being a kid, seeing him on the Johnny Carson show. He had his own cartoon. You watching Saturday Night's Main Event. That was the first wrestling figure I ever got. And now I'm sitting in a room where there's hundreds of them. But that was the very first one, that big rubber Hulk Hogan LJN. I'm not ashamed to say, a lot of people now go, oh, I never did like Hulk Hogan. I was a Hulkamaniac back in the day. I really was.
Gosh. So WrestleMania 6, when he fought Warrior and when he lost, I literally went out in my yard and cried. I was let's see, that was in WrestleMania 6. That was in 91, I think. And I was 10 years old. I literally went outside and cried. I was so heartbroken over it. But yeah.
I mean, I remember Orndorff turning on him. I remember all those in real time back then. The series of Piper's Pits leading to WrestleMania 3 with Andre and all that. And yeah, man, I wasn't a comic book guy. I didn't grow up really into like Superman and Batman and all that stuff so much. So Hulk Hogan was my superhero. He's the guy that I looked up to, and I bought into all of it, and he's just, we talked about this before we started recording, we've lost a lot of wrestlers over the years for various reasons. And some of the people that we've seen, pass away at younger ages, you think, well, it's kind of been a miracle that Hogan's, hung around this long. But I don't know, man. He's just one of those guys that you just expected to be there. You know what I mean? Like I've never woke up to a world that Hulk Hogan wasn't in. In other words, you know what I mean?
You expected him to live forever.
Yeah.
I mean you really
he
did.
told us Hulkamania lives forever.
Yeah, exactly. You literally expected him to live forever, and unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. So I guess I have a couple of Hulk Hogan stories. The first one, I'll go like to the earliest one. So in 1993, my family, me, my mom, my sister, and then my then stepdad all had moved to Largo, Florida, which is near Tampa, out on the peninsula, and we were not far from Clearwater Beach, and I didn't realize Hogan even lived there. Well, we had moved down there, and our neighbors, who were lifelong residents of that, found out that I was a wrestling fan. In '93, I was 12. So I found out I was a wrestling fan, and then, well, they said, well, he lives here. And I'm like, lives here? And they were
You're like,
like,
no,
yeah,
he lives
he
in
lives.
Venice Beach, California, brother.
Yeah, I thought he lived in California. Exactly. So they were like, no, he lives out on a country club out in Bel Air, which is close to Clearwater Beach. I was like, well, awesome. I said, well, I remember looking at my mom. I was like, we got to figure out a way to see him somehow. And they were like, well, it's easy. There's a restaurant, and they named it off. And I'm thinking that name of that restaurant was either Three Coins Cafe or something like that. Like, it was a little country greasy spoon type place. And they said that normally on such and such, every such and such day of the week, maybe like a Wednesday or a Thursday or something, Hogan usually goes in and eats breakfast. And I was like, okay. So I told my folks, I was like, we've got to go try to meet him. So we literally went there every whatever day of the week that was. We went there every week for about probably a month trying to run into Hogan so I could meet him. Well, never did. Never ran into him. And I think we even rode out and tried to see where his house, where he lived, because they told us exactly where it was. But the area that he lived in, of course, it was a gated community, so you couldn't get in there if you didn't live there.
Yeah.
But anyway, so my dad lived in Dallas and did for years and years. So I left Tampa and flew to Dallas to go see my dad for the summer. And all of my folks from Mississippi were going to Tampa to visit my mom and my sister and my then stepdad while I was gone. So evidently, and my mother told me this story. So evidently, my folks were all wanting to go eat breakfast somewhere. It happened to be that morning of the week or whatever. And they were like, well, we know this restaurant and it's got good food. So we'll just go down there. It's okay. So anyway, they all load up and go down there. So it's my mom, my sister, my then stepdad, both of my grandparents, and I think my aunt and uncle were there, but I'm not sure. But anyway, so they go in to eat breakfast at this place, and it did have really good food. And my grandmother, who has since passed away, my mom said my grandmother was sitting there, and she goes, "Oh my goodness, look at that big old hippie walking in here." And my mom looked up, and it was Hogan. He had came in, and he had the do-rag on, and cliche Hulk Hogan had the tank top on and the whole thing. Well, my mom was just freaking out. She's like, well, of course, the 1 week we come down here and Neil's not here, we run into him. So my entire family met Hogan that morning. My sister, everybody got autographs, got a picture of him. Wow. He was drinking he had this huge water bottle that he was drinking out of when he was eating breakfast. My stepdad goes and steals that off the table when Hogan got done eating and left. And so they brought it back. I had a picture, a picture my mother had took with him with like one of those old school disposable cameras that she had, an autograph, and then this water bottle. And in all the moving I've done, I have no idea what has happened to all this stuff. Yeah. But that's it. And my mom called me the same day when I was in Dallas and was like, "You're never going to guess what happened." And I was so heartbroken over it. And I still regret it to this day, and definitely today.
Yeah.
But so
I've met a lot of wrestlers, but that's the one that has eluded me. And I found out recently he was opening that store over in Gatlinburg, and we usually like to go over there, about once a year. So it was like, hey, maybe we'll go whenever Hogan's going to be there. And that was kind of my game plan to finally meet Hogan, but not going to happen.
No, and we were in Gatlinburg back the first part of May, and I was hoping the store would be open by then so we could go in there, but it wasn't. But one other funny Hogan story I have is I was with and I can't remember. This has been a few years ago. So it was the first time we had booked Jimmy Hart, who I still can't stay in contact with. I actually talked to Jimmy Hart about a week and a half ago, and it was the very first time that we had booked him at EPW. So I'll go to pick him up at the airport. And if you know anything about Jimmy Hart, when he's in Memphis, there's two things he wants to do. He wants to go to Tops Barbecue, and he wanted to go to Poncho's out on Summer Avenue. So anyway, so I think we had just left Tops Barbecue or something, and we were headed to Tupelo. And it was, like I said, the first time I'd ever met him, and I was a little awestruck by the fact this is Jimmy Hart in my car. And I remember us talking, and I said something to him about it being Hulk's birthday. He looked at me, he goes, "It's Hulk's birthday?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh man." He said, "Hang on just a second." So he literally gets his phone out. If you've ever been around Hart, you watch him. Hart would get his phone up real close, and he punched the buttons or whatever. He held it up, and he said, "When I start singing, you sing too." I'm like, "Okay." So I can hear he's put the phone on. He had put the phone on speakerphone, and undeniable voice. "Jimmy Hart, brother, what's going on?" And Jimmy Hart goes, "Happy birthday to you." So I just chime right in. I'm riding down I-22 in the car with Jimmy Hart, and we're singing "Happy Birthday" to Hulk Hogan. And at the end of it, Hogan goes, "Brothers, thank y'all so much. Thank you, Jimmy. Jimmy, where are you at?" And then Jimmy says, "Well, we're on our way to Tupelo. I'm with my buddy Neil or whatever." And Jimmy goes, or Hulk goes, "Neil, you take care of my man down there." And I said, "Yes, sir." And then he clicked it off speakerphone, and they talked some business or whatever. But yeah, I got to sing "Happy Birthday" to Hulk Hogan.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a fun thing about Hulk. Like the stories you hear is like he's Hulk all day long. Like that's how he walked around dressed. Like he's talking about him coming in that restaurant. Like dude went around dressed like
that was him. That was just him.
That's how he was. And then and he said "brother" all the time. From everything I can tell, that's how he talked. It wasn't like a big put on or anything.
Yes,
and Jimmy's Jimmy.
Oh my God, Jimmy Hart.
Jimmy Hart. 2 in the morning to 2 in the evening.
And I have been with Jimmy Hart until 2 o'clock in the morning, and I promise you, he is Jimmy Hart. Everything is beautiful, baby, all day long. I've never run across anybody more positive. But man, all I can think about today is, I mean, obviously, a big piece of our childhood has passed away, and a huge part of the business. I mean, people can say what they want to about Hulk Hogan. They can and they will. But one thing you cannot deny is the mark that Hulk Hogan left on the wrestling business. And he is an icon in the wrestling business. He brought it to mainstream, and you can't deny that. And I'll say this, and I'll leave it alone. I make a living. I'm in the entertainment business. I make a living in the entertainment business. I've been around a lot of celebrities, and a lot of people would be surprised at some of the things that celebrities do and say behind closed doors. But you can never be passive on the impact that they have, and you can never be passive on the impact that Hulk Hogan had on the wrestling business. And I mean, he's a sports icon. He's a pop culture icon.
Yes. I mean, people who've never watched wrestling in their lives, that don't know anything about professional wrestling or sports entertainment, know who Hulk Hogan is from that generation. I mean, all you had to say was Hulk Hogan. Or if you mentioned wrestling, they'd be like, "Oh, you mean WWF like Hulk Hogan?" They were the brand. That's what wrestling was to people. And that actually was a good thing, because before people thought it was like, "Oh, that old hillbilly stuff down at the, Army, depot or whatever." Is like, no, everybody who became a millionaire in wrestling, every person who has made a good living and become a literal superstar in wrestling, owes it to Hulk Hogan. Yes, Vince McMahon played his role in that, but I don't think there's anybody else Vince McMahon could have put in that spot that could have taken things to the level and made this into what it's become besides Hulk Hogan.
Absolutely true.
I'll argue anybody with that. And I've already seen it. I mean, anybody who's going to take today of all days to get on there and have an axe to grind with him and, knock him and all that, whatever. Can't you do that on a different day? I mean, you're going to pick today to be the day to be that guy. Like, you you don't have to like him personally. You don't have to like some of the things he's said or done. We've all done things and said things we probably aren't proud of. But like Neil said, you cannot deny the impact he had on the business and all the positive things he brought to all of us who profess to love professional wrestling.
Absolutely.
So, rest in peace, Hulkster. And I always, I don't really have a story with Hogan, but I'll tell you, the one connection I felt to Hogan, besides just being a big fan, is when I found out I eventually saw a magazine or a newspaper somewhere that his real name was Terry Gene Balea, and my name's Terry Gene. And besides my dad, Terry Gene Sr., I didn't know of anybody else with the name Terry Gene. So I thought that was pretty damn cool. So I felt a little bit of a kinship with the Hulkster over our name, if nothing else.
That's
and of
awesome.
course, our physique, but just those two things.
Rest in peace, brother.